Thank you very much, Osnat, and a huge welcome to everybody around the screen and from around the world. I just have to tell you, because it's so strong for me. I had the most fabulous summer that I think I've ever had that I can remember. I went to Seattle where I met Osnat, and then the two of us went down to Portland, Oregon, where we spent time with Jan Hively, the founder of our Poseidon Network. And then I came back, and then I went to Poland. I visited Krakow, and then I went to Slovakia, and where there was a meeting of the of URAG, which is the federation, the oldest federation of organizations for and by older people in Europe. And there were 22 different countries mentioned there and present there, including one of our Poseidon pioneers from the Ukraine. So it was an extremely interesting and varied summer. And it just made me feel so grateful to our Poseidon network for the opportunities that I've had to meet so many people, so many wonderful people around the world. So you bear with me just while, for the people who don't really know the Poseidon network, just to mention a few points. The one is that we started in 2013. Our co-founder, whom I thought would be present now, is Jan Hively, who's now living in Portland. And what we are all about, the Poseidon Network, is to advocate for the rights of older people. And I must say that we've been quite encouraged this year with the progress being made at the United Nations. They've closed off now the open-ended working group, and it seems that the framing of a convention is on the cards. I won't say it's just right there, but it certainly is on the cards. And then another passion of ours is to see what we can do about adjusting society to longevity, because there's so many things that have changed and need to be changed in our societies. So just to mention how we operate, we have these 50-50 sessions once a month, and they're all recorded and go onto our YouTube channel. And I think we now have something like well over 30 really interesting interviews that we've had with people all around. We publish a gazette, which is more or less regular, and we really thrive to develop our network internationally, because the whole phenomenon of aging is a global phenomenon. So we're very proud of the fact that we have people represented in 65 different countries around the world. And in some areas, we've been growing regional networks, like in Southern Africa, where we have 12 different countries that get together also on a monthly basis to discuss. And very often they have great problems with the electricity in that part of the world. So electrical outages are unfortunately one of the problems. But that is our Poseidon network. We're not a membership based. In other words, we don't ask people to pay. Maybe we should have, but we didn't. And we welcome people from anywhere all over the world who join and share these interests for us. And I think with that, Osnet, I'm going to pass back to you so that we can leap into our very interesting subject for tonight. Thank you.
Welcome, everybody. My name is Osnat. I'm a friend of the Poseidon Network, and I'm here today to introduce the context of our conversation today. So, how do you harness the power of purpose? How can people of all ages get to lead in service and in social change? Today, we are welcoming Barbara Greenspan of Shaiman, who founded Champions of Caring in 1995, and Joyce Cohen, who's a co-leader with Vicky Thomas of My Future Purpose. These are change initiatives incubator. And what they're going to do is guide us in a conversation focused on the principles behind Champions of Caring work and how they encourage multi-generational collaboration. Let me introduce our guests. Barbara Greenspan Shaiman is a Holocaust survivor's daughter who founded Champions of Caring, impacting over 10,000 youth in Philadelphia and South Africa. She authored Live Your Legacy Now and My Legacy Portfolio, promoting impactful legacies. And she also advocates intergenerational collaborations and co-creates the Coral Ring Legacy documentary to inspire activism and change. Barbara will be followed by her friend and collaborator, Joyce Cohen. Joyce is a career development specialist and the co-founder of My Future Purpose that inspires individuals to discover and live their purpose, and intergenerational programs like Meeting of the Minds. With extensive global experience, he has mentored veterans and held leadership roles, including being the president of Life Planning Network. And without further ado, I'm going to pass it on to Barbara to take us through what comes next.
Thank you so much. And I'm delighted to be here today and to see all of you from different countries around the world. It's truly an honor and a pleasure. And Moira and Osnet, and if Jan were here, thank you so much for having me. I hold you all in such high regard. And Moira, we just remembered that we met each other in Sarasota. It must be around 15 years ago at a positive aging meeting. Remember that, Joyce? And Carol, you were there, so it's a nice homecoming. And Moira, I remember our wonderful lunch in Paris several months ago where we really got to know each other. You all inspire me with your wisdom, your passion, and your commitment to creating a kinder world. I'm delighted that my dear friends and colleagues, Joyce Cohen and Vicki Thomas, are also on this call. Joyce will be speaking about our collaboration with their organizations, My Future Purpose and Meeting of the Minds. For me, collaborating with like-minded people is so critical because we spread our message and we can have a much greater impact when we work collaboratively together. So it's an honor for me to be here with you today to share my passion. And as I reflect back on what inspired me to become a social activist, I realized that it was really my beautiful, extraordinary mother, Carola Greenspan, who was kind, smart, loving, and giving in spite of being in the Holocaust and having lost 65 members of her family. When I was a little girl, about 7 years old, my mother would play a game with me, which was called the Mensch test. Mensch is a German Yiddish word that means a good, kind person. Every day when I would come home from school, my mother would say, "Were you a Mensch today?" and tell me what you did to become that Mensch. And I remember sitting on the bus making up these extraordinary stories like I was Superwoman. I jumped off a towering building to save people. And I'd come home so excited to tell my mother this incredible story. And she would say, I can smell a lie. Please don't make up stories, but instead in your life, think about being kind. Think about what you can do each day to make someone feel better. Sit with someone who has no one to sit with in your class. Share your snack. Invite someone to your house. And I have to tell you that to this day, before I fall asleep, I do that Mensch test in my mind, thinking of my mother, connecting with her, and really reflecting on what did I do today to be kinder, and what can I do tomorrow that can even help me be a better person, a more giving person. It helps me reflect on what I call intentional acts of kindness, where you go with an intentionality and an open mind to always think about how can I show up in the world as a mensch. You know, this was contrary, if you remember from, I think it was The King and I, you have to be taught to hate. Remember that song, before you are 6 or 7 or 8, you have to be carefully taught to hate all the people your family hates. You have to be carefully taught. And that is so upsetting that hatred can frequently be generated at the dinner table. So my mother's view of being a mensch and thinking about that really inspired me tremendously. And Avsnet shared how I started a foundation in 1995 to promote social activism. But I'd like to share a story that inspired me to make such a huge change in my life. In 1989, I was running a national executive search firm, recruiting senior level healthcare executives and physicians. I felt as a baby boomer, I had hit my stride running a company of this nature and feeling really great about myself. And then my mother announced at a meeting in Philadelphia of a few thousand Holocaust survivors, as we were marching to the Liberty Bell, that she wanted our family to go back to Poland and that she wanted to take me and my brother through Auschwitz and explain what happens when people lose their humanity and a world sits by silent and indifferent. And initially, we were very concerned. My brother's a physician, and he said, no, Mom, this is not a good idea. But my mother insisted, and we wound up at Auschwitz with 40 Holocaust survivors and their children. And that day changed my life forever. My mother used to compulsively brush her teeth. She would always make us late for events because she would keep saying, I need to brush my teeth yet one more time. When my mother had dementia, she would wake up the caretaker because she needed at 3 a.m. to brush her teeth. I never understood this, and my brother and I were always irritated with my mom because she was doing this, and it seemed so peculiar to us. As we're standing at the gates of Auschwitz, my mother turns to me and says, I was 19 years old. I had lost everyone and everything. I was on the last transport out of the Lodz ghetto. I snuck a toothbrush into my dress. I didn't have clean water. I didn't have toothpaste, but the feel of the bristles on my teeth made me feel human. When I got to Auschwitz, they took that toothbrush away from me. I had such a visceral reaction to that I had to leave my mother. I was shaking and I said, Mom, I'll be right back. I had to catch my breath. I felt so guilty that I had been making fun of my mom for this because she had never told me the trauma behind her brushing her teeth. I ran into the courtyard and I saw some German boys, 14, 15-year-old, laughing and clowning around. And I was appalled. How can you behave this way at a killing place like Auschwitz? I approached them, and German is my first language. I was born in Germany. And I asked them, do you understand where you are? How can you behave this way? And they kept laughing. And bam, my life changed forever. I had this epiphany right at that spot that I must go back to Philadelphia where I live and create a program to teach kindness and empathy, to really honor and celebrate young people who are change makers, who contribute to making a better world, to make them the heroes of our time. And the name Champions of Caring popped into my head. Why aren't we celebrating young people for their kindness and caring? We do celebrate kids for getting straight A's, for being great athletes. What about the heart? And I came back to the state, and my best friend's husband was Bob Wright. Unfortunately, my girlfriend Suzanne died several years ago. And at the time, he was the CEO of NBC Universal. And he asked about what happened at Auschwitz and on the trip. I shared it with him. And he said to me, NBC will come in as a partner for your foundation. And I'd like to introduce you to Steven Spielberg, which he did. And Spielberg was making the film Schindler's List. And I was very fortunate to get money from Steven Spielberg's Righteous Person Foundation to create Champions of Caring. I'm very grateful to these two men who gave me the opportunity to take a dream and make it a reality. So since 1995, we have worked with 10,000 high school students in the greater Philadelphia region who've given over 1 million hours of service locally, nationally, and globally. And more, I'm excited to tell everyone that we did a pilot in Cape Town, South Africa, with an organization called Ma Africa Tikkun. And we're including footage of what we did in Cape Town in the documentary that we're currently creating. And through Champions of Caring, just to give you a brief overview, we created 3 programs. A recognition program celebrating high school students who created social justice programs, who had to write to us and explain what they did, how it impacted them, and get letters of reference. We then created a leadership program because these students wanted us to hone their grant writing skills, their speech writing, their fundraising, their public relations skills. So we brought in community experts to help them. And then the school districts in our area approached me and said, can you write a curriculum that we can train teachers in this service learning character educational model? And currently, we are creating a documentary called The Coral Ring Legacy. And the goal of this legacy is to inspire people of all ages and backgrounds to become change makers. About 5 years ago, I became involved with Temple University and members of the Life Planning Network in a course that was taught by a psychology professor about positive aging, about how you can grow and thrive through the years. And what I'd like to share is the population that was in the class. The age range was from 18 to 95. And it was such a beautiful union of people sharing from their hearts, feeling unintimidated to be open and talk about what was important to them in their lives. And the relationships that were formed were extraordinary. One of our members, Thelma Reese, who's 91 years old, is still speaking for 3 years now, once a week, to 2 of the students that she was involved with. It literally has changed people's lives to have these kinds of meaningful relationships. And as Thelma says to me, this is not like talking to your grandchildren. It's a very different kind of relationship, but it adds so much joy. And we did this during COVID, which made people who felt isolated feel like they belonged to a community. We did all of our meetings on Zoom, and then we created an intergenerational cafe. And Joyce is going to share more about that. But again, it was bringing seniors and college students together. And now we're recreating this cafe. Initially, it was just to have them get to know each other in dialogue. Now we're trying to promote social activism between the generations. And it opened up my eyes to the importance of changing the mission of our organization, not just to have it for high school students, but to create and celebrate change makers of all ages and all backgrounds. And in this documentary, we are following former champions who are now in their 30s and 40s and continue to create social change. We just got back from Finland, where we were filming one of our extraordinary young people who is helping to bring in asylum seekers from Slovakia, from Ukraine, from all over the world, to teach them how to get acculturated into the society there. We're also filming in Washington, D.C., New Orleans, and Philadelphia. And in a moment, I'm going to show you the trailer for our movie. But what I also want to tell you is that if you'd like to join us in any way, we're providing an empowerment toolkit on our website, championsofcaring.org, to assist individuals in creating their projects. So I'm really thrilled that we have this opportunity today to talk to all of you and to inspire you to join us. And what I'd like to do is tell you for a moment about the Coral Ring Legacy, which is the name of the documentary, and why I chose to name it. If you can see my hand, I am wearing probably the most precious object I own. And it's not because of its value, but it's because of what it connotes to me. My grandmother was an entrepreneur in the early 1900s. She was living, and Moira, you just talked about going to Krakow, Poland. My father's family was from Krakow. My grandmother learned the Italian and traveled to Livorno, Italy, where she purchased this coral ring and got involved with a woman, Signora Maffei, and started a coral and mosaic brooch business in Krakow. When she heard what was going on and there were rumors people were being taken away on trains to different places, people didn't know what was happening. My grandmother gave this ring to a Polish man who worked in the family business and said, please save this ring for me. And if I'm lucky to survive, I'll come back and get it. Well, that was right before she was sent on the transport to Auschwitz from Krakow. When my father worked for Oskar Schindler when he was in Krakow, he was very fortunate to have that opportunity to work for Schindler at his factory in Malya. But unfortunately, he was not put on that famous list and instead was sent from Krakow on the death march and wound up at the Theresienstadt concentration camp. There he met my mother. They both had typhus. My mother weighed 65 pounds. My dad weighed 80 pounds, but they fell in love with each other. And when they were liberated, they went back to their cities together. As I mentioned, when my mother went to Lodz, out of 65 people in her family, no one was left. When they went to Krakow, my father found his mother, his brother, and one cousin. And my grandmother was so ecstatic to meet her future daughter-in-law that she said, oh my God, I have a ring for you. And they went to find the man that they had given the coral ring to. And he said he didn't have it. Can you imagine? After all that had happened, he denied having the ring. My grandmother went and got the police, and suddenly this ring appeared. This became my mother's engagement ring. For my 50th birthday, my mother took this ring off of her finger, put it on mine, and said, this ring gave me so much joy after having survived the Holocaust. I want you to wear this ring every day. And when you look at your finger and the ring, think of how you can be a mensch. How can you be kind? How can you give back? How can you make the world a better place? And that is the reason that I'm naming the documentary The Coral Ring Legacy. So Asnet, if you could please play the trailer, I'd love to share this brief trailer with you of what we have filmed to date.
I, with overwhelmed reverence, enter into their world of shoes without feet.
In the Holocaust Museum, there is an exhibit of thousands and thousands and thousands of pairs of shoes that were confiscated from the people who were put into the concentration camps.
As I gaze with glazed eyes on the pile of broken dreams and broken souls.
When he was 15 years old, Martin was so moved by this exhibit that he wrote an exquisite poem.
For me to see those shoes like that, tore me up inside, because I was like, I can't believe that this even happened.
I wanted young people to understand why it's critical to stand up, to speak out, to raise your voice against hatred and violence in a society. The impetus for my starting Champions of Caring was to honor my parents and the many Holocaust survivors and those who perished.
We must teach our children to love and care. They must be their brothers' keepers, lest the world continues to make the same mistakes.
This coral ring was something that my grandmother purchased. It was her favorite stone. It personifies my family legacy. This ring became my mother's engagement ring. And she always told me that she loved the color and that the shine of it gave her a feeling about a new life. So my mother, for my 50th birthday, put this ring on my finger. And she said to me, every time you look at this ring, I want you to think about your responsibility to make the world a better place. I wanted to create a tool to empower young people to create social change. Because I know in my heart that if you give young people, anyone, the skill sets
to empower them to create social change, miracles can happen. And that was the beginning in 1995 of Champions of Caring.
We came together from different walks of life, but the one common language that we all had was we want to influence change.
We're so much more alike than we are different. And I think that message is lost today. We tend to focus a lot on what separates us, what divides us, rather than what unites us.
It didn't matter what race, religion, ethnicity, socioeconomic background you were going to be embraced. You were going to be welcomed. And that same kindness we were giving to the people and children in our communities through our volunteer work.
Every day I try and spread the love. Every single person that I see, I say what's up, give a hug.
Champions of Caring really helped me spread my wings and recognize the impact that I'm capable of having.
I'm a 9th grader at Lower Marion High School. My project was a triathlon to benefit paralysis research. I chose this project because someone really close to me was paralyzed in a car accident, and I wanted to help out.
I started to realize that there's no starting age for service, and that I could be taken seriously at a much younger age and do a project any size that I imagined.
That is what we had the opportunity to do when we looked at our city and we said, Philadelphia could use light. And I, as a 16, 17-year-old kid, felt so empowered because through Champions, I know that I had a community that was pushing me to do this. And so to be in a room with all of these young people and we all having that same notion of change and the little things that we can do that would impact the entire world really inspired us all the time. I know it absolutely inspired me.
Champions of Caring really gave me the platform and the confidence and the opportunities to grow as a teenager, to grow into an adult. Someone who gives back to the community, I mean, it's who I am. I wouldn't have been able to do it without it.
Champions gave me courage that probably would not have happened otherwise.
We don't become champions because someone decides to recognize us for what we do. We become champions because it's the spirit that's inside of us, and resolute in the fact that we make a difference in somebody's life.
It gave me a voice when I didn't believe that I really had a voice that was meant for the masses. And I remember the smell of hundreds of thousands of shoes that were there at the museum. To this day, when I smell old leather, reminds me of the children who had been murdered. If we don't learn from the past, we are truly destined to have it happen again.
How do we identify the problems, the challenges that our community, our state, our country, our world is facing? How do we come up with a plan to make things better around us?
We have to make sure that we leave a better legacy for our children, for our communities, because they deserve that.
And that's why we're making this documentary. We want to share this with everyone because everyone can help change the world. And you are the role models. You are extraordinary, each of you in your own unique way. And if we can stand up and speak out and share what we've learned, we can change the world. I hope you're inspired by these incredible young people. The time is now for us to create change. The world is in a very precarious situation. There's too much hatred, there's too much violence, there are too many inequities in our society. Each of us has the power to create change. Let's come together and create a better, kinder world for us and for future generations. The time is now.
I hope you got the message of these wonderful young people who at the ages of 30 and 40 continue to do what they did when they were 14 and 15 years old. And so I would love for you to connect with me through championsofcaring.org, watch the trailer, use the empowerment toolkit that we have on our website if you want to start an organization or participate in our intergenerational cafes. I'd like to end with my mother again, who would say, be a mensch, do intentional acts of kindness. And as the title of the book that I wrote says, live your legacy now, live a life of meaning and of purpose. So I thank you for your time and your interest. This is my book, which shares the stories of these young people. And I'm proud to share with you that it's being used in MBA classes at universities throughout the greater Philadelphia area, at Penn State, at Drexel, at University of Pennsylvania, at Temple. So if you're interested, book was written as a discussion guide on how you can live a life and live your legacy.
Great. Thank you, Barbara. Joyce, I invite you to share with us how do you see work supporting this intergenerational collaboration?
Terrific. So both Vicki and I are thrilled to be here. And Vicki Wave, several years ago, right at the beginning of the pandemic, we formed an organization called My Future Purpose. And given our relationship with Barbara over the years and interest in Champions of Caring, as our organization grew, we are really about helping people and organizations find central purpose, find what matters most, and in essence, what makes your heart sing. And whether that's individual clients that we work with one-on-one or organizations or through workshops that we do, that's the whole purpose of getting people in touch with what matters most. So whether it's Champions of Caring or whether it's My Future Purpose, we realized we're on very similar paths. And with that in mind, we host a monthly intergenerational gathering that's called Meeting of the Minds. We call it MOM for short, Meeting of the Minds. And our whole purpose is to have this group get together, talk about issues that are of concern to the individuals and what they want to do about it. So we really have a threefold purpose. It's one, to ignite ideas or at least consider what people are concerned about and what's an action step that they can take. And then from a month to month, how do we hold ourselves accountable? So that's where our monthly Meeting of the Minds dovetails beautifully with Champions of Caring. And just to give you just a couple of quick examples, someone has a Palestinian living on one side and an Israeli living on the other, and they won't talk. And she said, I'm the house in the middle. And I want to do something to get this group together. Another woman has been in higher education for a number of years, deals with a lot of students who are either lesbian, gay, et cetera, but part of that whole community and have been ousted from their families. And she said, I find these young people living in cars, and she wanted to reach out and do something about that. So every situation is different, and they come together, and the intergenerational beauty of that is that we share and back and forth things they can do. And then in the chat, it will go with, I want to talk to you because I know someone who would be really helpful working in that area. So that's what Meeting of the Minds is all about and how we dovetail with Champions of Caring. And Vicki, if you have anything else to add, just chime in.
Mute. Our next meeting of Champions of Caring, I think, is Thursday. We do it the last Thursday of every month at 7:00 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. And our next meeting, where we come together with our intergenerational connections, our colleagues, our friends, and associates who participate, is going to be Thursday, September, I think it's the 27th or 26th. Joyce, do you have your calendar?
So Barbara and Joyce, I put a link to the calendar of events and the MOM dates in the chat.
So 26th.
And you can refer to it there. This has been really moving conversation, Barbara. What you shared has filled my heart with with emotions, and I think everybody else might have felt the same way. And Joyce, the opportunity to act on this that you're offering through Mom is really wonderful. And maybe it's an opportunity, as we like to do every single 50-50, is to go for 12 minutes into small groups of 3 and just think about what is one issue that you see in your community that demands your attention? And who would you include in this conversation? So I'm going to send you off to 12 minutes and we'll come back. We can share some more in the big group. And I'll see you in 12 minutes. Welcome back. I hope you had a good discussion. This is an opportunity now for the next, another 12 minutes to share what struck you, what stood out for you in your conversation, not necessarily to report what happened in the conversation, but what came out for you is something to share with everybody else. And because we have a lot of people and maybe a lot of you want to speak, so maybe you can keep it to a headline rather than 6 paragraphs. So really appreciate that. And you can raise your digital hand or your actual hand and speak into the room. Maybe you have some questions. Yes, Catherine.
Catherine.
Well, I was impressed in our group. Han is from the Netherlands, and he was talking about being a role model by being interactive and gracious with new Kenyan immigrants. And that somewhat answered my frustration that in this day and age where there isn't a common acceptance of what is or isn't a fact that can refute prejudice, that was a very good example, that maybe more people seeing him would begin to at least start to question their own position.
Being a role model is important.
No, I'm not. Hello. We had Kin and we had Himashu in our group, and Kin just lost her job. However, she's not lost her sense of purpose in the pursuit of helping homelessness and homeless efforts in the Minneapolis area. Himashu is just an amazing individual dealing with volumes of people in India, bringing intergenerational people together. I was really impressed with him. Not only is he doing it in India, but they have an office in New York City, and it is called Age Well Foundation that is continuing its efforts to increase the magnitude of what they have done successfully in India to be able to replicate it in the United States. Very impressive.
I think I shared about my frustration at the United Nations in the forthcoming Summit for the Future, that they've really overlooked older persons and forgotten older people are part of the future, that youth become old in a society that should be better for them. And I was joined by Lisa and Barbara, and we brainstormed quickly, and at least Barbara and I are going to get together in New York in October when she's here, but we're going to keep in touch and exchange their information. So I think my bottom line is networking is always the best way to go. It's great.
Anything else came up in your conversations that you'd like to share with everybody? Joyce.
Yeah, in our group, several things. When Adele was talking about volunteering, and as volunteering is like her passion now, she volunteers at Baycrest. I'm familiar with it's about connected Canadians dedicated to digital literacy for older adults. And we know that's an issue and across the board. So anyone doing anything in that field is to be acknowledged and honored because it takes patience and it's so appreciated. So that's the first thing. And then on Carol's side, twofold. Carol, is an avid note taker. And so she not only listens, but she listens and records. And now with AI, it's making that whole thing a little easier. But also, in her octogenarian years, she started an organization called the Cycles of Life Legacy and is now training trainers to look at your family. And so, Carol, you might even want to put in the chat your email address. So if people are interested, Cycles of Life Legacy, and about how you can honor the decades of your life and record it. And so it was just exciting to hear, but it was all about joy. You know, the joy that we get from, Adele gets from volunteering, that Carol gets from the training of trainers and the passing on her work. And it also dovetails directly with not only My Future Purpose, but definitely with Champions of Caring and everything that Barbara stands for.
Thank you, Joyce. Miroslava, you're next. You're on mute.
Yes. I just wanted very briefly to really congratulate Barbara on her passion. That was very inspiring. We were just two of us in a group, so we sort of moved around various subjects. You can't see my colleague now. Can't see her on the screen. Never mind. Anyway, we talked about very briefly about the moral disorientation of younger people in today's society. And my view on it is that it's not the blame of the younger people that they feel they don't know what's right or wrong. And they often, and that's a growing global concern, commit acts of violence, even against themselves or their peers. It's been termed as a sort of growing mental, psychological disorientation that certainly the professionals don't know how to deal with. And my take on it is that we can't blame the individuals. It's a societal issue, and there is only one way to deal with it, and that is be a good example and reintroduce, I would say, morality into education. I have no answers how to do it, and I do my best in my individual way of life. So that's about what I wanted to say. Thank you.
Thank you. Sheila, you have your hand up.
I am the founder and director of the Legacy Film Festival on Aging, if some of you have heard about it. And we're going into our 12th annual third virtual festival in January 2025. We spend a whole year looking for the right films about aging, and then we show them and we have discussions about the films. So if you're interested, perhaps you can allow Moira or Osnat to put your name on a list so that I can send you information. It's a tough thing to do, but we're still doing it. And now more people, younger people, are interested in aging. I always tell this one story. When I started and I had my booklet, which said Legacy Film Festival on Aging, a publicist looked at it and she pointed to the word aging and she said, take that word off there. It does not, people don't like to see that. And I said, that's my point. I will keep that word aging on there forever because that's what we're all doing and we want to do it well. So that's my thinking.
Thank you, Sheila. Sheila, maybe you can put the website in the chat so we'll know where to find you.
About something that Lisa shared in our group, that is the director of services at a senior center. She's finding it difficult for seniors to get engaged with younger people. And I would love to continue the conversation with her, because I think between Joyce, Vicky, and myself, what we're doing, we can get seniors excited. We've done it at Temple University. And, you know, if you have seniors that are not raring to go, call us. Or if you have college students or younger people that are not willing to participate, because it is truly something that is so impactful and so beautiful. And I encourage all of you, when you do your work, to make it intergenerational. We can't be afraid of each other. We need to come together, be collaborative, be respectful, and it really does so much to create a better world. So please, you know, reach out to me, to Joyce, to Vicky, if you want more information about our cafes, for the documentary and the empowerment toolkit that we're providing on our website, because it's in all of our hands. Young, old, every single generation. And that's how we can repair what I see as a very broken world right now.
Yes, thank you, Barbara. I put your contact and Joyce's contact in the chat, so you can reach out to them for further conversations. Maybe it's time we pause here. Joyce, anything that you'd like to add as a end cap or bookends for this main part of the conversation?
I think we covered most. I mean, the whole purpose of this, I mean, is really, it's to get at what makes your heart sing. What do people love? What do you want to do? Even if you don't know how to get started, that's where these organizations and what we're all about is to help you begin to figure that out, and then put your thoughts to action, because it's all about taking action. And as so many of these, I mean, we just touched, you know, the surface, but there are 10 or 12 projects going on right now, and they're all exciting, but it's all about what do you care about and what do you want to do something about. So Vicky, you want to add anything to that? Unmute yourself.
Can you hear me now? Okay. I think that, first of all, the applause should go to Barbara Shaiman and her amazing documentary film, and the testimony that 20 or 30 years later, here are these now grown adults continuing to make a difference in their community, in their country, in their service, and what they do. And I think that continues to be the most important thing. Is we all want to be something bigger than ourselves. We want to do something that's bigger than ourselves. And based on what we've heard here today, there are so many opportunities to make a difference, to make a connection, to make a difference. And what it does is it makes you feel good here. And not only that, it improves the lives of others. So just explore opportunities to volunteer in your community to make a difference. Look at the various nonprofits that are doing amazing work, and step up, speak out, and make a difference.
Powerful words. We're getting to the end of our formal part of the conversation. So I would like to, first of all, thank Barbara, Joyce, and Vicky for introducing us to another aspect of activism, one that anybody can do, whether you want to be a mensch today or whether you want to lead a much bigger project. There are ways to do it. We put some links in the chat, and we're also going to include a lot of that stuff in the highlights that you'll be receiving in just a few days, with the link to the YouTube video and the copy of the chat and anything else. So thank you, and thank all of you. What I'd like to share with you right now is what we're going to do in October. In October, we'll have another 50-50 conversation. It's going to be on the 14th of October, and the invitation should be in your mail in about 10 days. It's a very special one. Many of you have seen in your mail is informal, non-scholarly survey that we sent around, and many of you actually responded to the survey. It's a survey of curiosity. It's a topic that is dear to our heart about intergenerational dynamics among people that are 60 plus. So we're not talking here about people who are 80 trying to get together with people who are 20. That is well known. Something a little bit less talked about is how we tend to lump all older adults in one group. And we were very curious to find out what are the fine differences between those groups. And one thing that, so we're going to have this conversation. We refer to that, the results of that survey. We're going to send you the results in your invitation. So if you're very curious about the results, open that invitation, the link that is going to be with it. And I just want to share with you that one thing that stood out very clearly from, I would say about 65% of the answers was that many in this age group, 60 plus, prefer not to define themselves by chronological age. How surprising or not surprising. We'll get into this a little bit more in our conversation in October. And we look forward to discussing with you this point and others on October 14th at 1 o'clock, and look for invitation in about a week. And with that, we are closing the official part of our 50-50 conversation. If you have to leave, that's the time. If not, let's stay for another 15 minutes and talk about things that have not been said and may not necessarily relate to the topic that we have today. So here we are.
I want to share a fantasy that I had since I came back to France. I think you might be aware of the fact that we had these very dramatic elections in France, and that anyway, that changed the goodie, and our president called for a surprise election, and that happened before I went. Before I went on holiday, and they've only now just managed to appoint a prime minister. But what was my fantasy was that before this, France had its youngest prime minister, Monsieur Attal, and he was under 25. And they've now appointed the oldest prime minister in the Fifth Republic, and he's 73. And I just thought, wouldn't it be extraordinary if they could do a tandem? And I said that to my French friends last night, and they said, you must be off your mind. They've got such different political views. But I mean, that would really be such a message, wouldn't it? But anyway, it was a fantasy.
I love your fantasy.
Around the world, it is old people who lead.
Sorry?
In most democracies around the world, it is old people who are the leaders.
Yeah.
All over the world, that's what is happening, and most of the world most of the premiers in almost all the countries are old people.
Are old people, but then they need it. Well, I don't know if they need, but I mean, it would be good to have some.
They're looked up to because of their wisdom.
Anyway, it was a simple fantasy.
I think it's a profound fantasy. And why can't we make that happen, bringing older and younger together? Each of us are trying to do that in our own ways. But I think that kind of prototype would be so extraordinary.
It would.
To share the wisdom. Let's make it happen, Moira. It shouldn't be a fantasy. It should be a reality.
Well, the business world, has got very strong data in this respect. And they show that all senior enterprises, new enterprises, have difficulty getting off the ground, and all junior ones also. But when you have the mix, they have much more stability, because, well, it makes so much sense. There's experience, and then there's energy, and there's the new tech, etc., etc. So I think that would be a very worthwhile thing to get across. Yeah.
Yeah.
Good.
We have a similar election coming up.
Right.
And between it's very divisive. And I'm in a scale of 1 to 10. There's a 1 and there's a 10, and I'm not going to say which one's the 10, but her name starts with an A, ends with A, and anyway. So what we see is the representation of darkness and the past, as opposed to brightness, joy, in the future. And it's going to be very interesting when people go to the polls, what in the United States, what they choose and who is the majority. And it'll be a very defining moment in our country and in our politics and in our times.
An anecdote, when I was coming back from Jan in Portland on the train, I sat next to a woman of about 82 who travels an awful lot. And she said to me, we were discussing the politics and so forth, and she just said to me calmly, it's going to be very interesting to see whether our experiment is going to work. And I'd never ever thought of the United States of America as being a political experiment.
Yeah.
But in fact, if you think about Europe as well, that's the European Union is also a brave venture.
Yeah. It is going to be a defining moment.
Right.
Let's not deteriorate into politics.
No. Sorry. It was just the multi-generational thing that I was onto, Osnet.
Yeah, absolutely.
The other thing that young people bring is a basic knowledge of technology, and they apply it in every phase of their life, and it's new to many older folks. So when you tackle a project, they approach it so differently, and they bring in elements that some of us never heard of, much less know how to use. And when you bridge that together, you get farther, faster, with a whole new perspective, and there's joy in that.
Well, I know from my own experience, we have a bunch of college students on our think tank for the documentary, and they handle social media. They do things on social media I never heard of or knew you could even do. But I see how this enhances everything that we do and the way they sit and listen to a discussion and how they approach solutions to a problem. And what's so fascinating is each generation comes from a different vantage point and perspective, and together it's a much fuller, deeper dive into how can we solve a problem. And that's why, Moira, I love your idea, and I think that's the way we should be living. I'm sorry that we live in silos. I love when I used to share my room with my grandmother till I was 19, and then I got married and moved in with my husband. Point being, having multiple generations together is such a gift. And the more we do with each other, I think it changes the world in very positive ways.
Adele was saying in chat, the key is to having everyone listen to each other. And I want to add to this, is listen respectfully, without judgment, and with open mind.
I'd like to know what's blooming in the back of Adele's. Is that a screen thing? Because whatever that is, it's beautiful. What is that?
Thank you. It's a virtual background.
Oh, okay.
It's actually a picture that I took of a cherry blossom tree in Tokyo in 2019.
Beautiful.
Thank you. And it confuses a lot of people in the wintertime when they say to me, "Where are you?"
Well, just know it works.
Yeah. Anna, what area do you support?
Well, it's interesting. I tuned in today, less for the specific content, but I've been on your email list for a year, and I always have had conflicts with the other events. Most of my life has been spent in doing hospice work, end-of-life care, and I had published a book 15 years ago about that. And so now I'm really kind of wondering in my mid-70s what my next focus is going to be. So I'm just very glad to be a part of this conversation. As I determine, I've been very involved in land planning issues in my town and advocating for affordable housing, but I seem to be the only one on my planning board who wants affordable housing. So I'm an important voice, but not an important vote because I've been downvoted. Anyway, I'm just grateful to be with all of you and hearing your stories and your visions and sharing your expertise. So I'm very grateful. Thank you very much.
What's the name of your book,
coming
Joanna?
Excuse me?
What's the name of your book?
It is called Caring for Dying Loved Ones, a helpful guide for families and friends. And if you get it on Amazon, you need my middle name. It's Joanna Lillian Brown. There are just too many Joanna Browns. Joanna Lillian.
Can you put that in the chat? And then we can
Sure,
put
I'd be happy to. And it was published in China in simplified Chinese language in 2015.
Oh, wow.
It's been republished there in audiobook and ebook format. A PhD biologist, Chinese woman I know, totally revised and translated the book. And it's actually doing much more powerful work in China, where you cannot talk about death or dying, or you'll put a curse on someone and they'll die in a day.
Oh, God.
So this has really opened up a dialogue. The word dying had to be stripped from my book, but roughly is called Caring for Elderly People. But
Joanna, could you please write down the name of the book so that we can order it from Amazon? And Barbara, if you too could give the name once again for your book.
My book is called Live Your Legacy Now.
Is it available on Amazon?
Yes.
Okay.
Thank you.
I just have to say, every time we get together at Pass It On Network, I'm just absolutely amazed at the depth of experience and the depth of knowledge and the depth of the people who come here. You know, it is absolutely amazing and very enriching.
Jan and Moira, thank you for creating this organization. Thank you for bringing us all together so we can share from our hearts. And it's just such a joy to meet people from different countries, but it brings us closer together. The distance might be far, but our souls are connected. And I feel very privileged and lucky to be here today with you, with Joyce, Vicky, and everyone on the call to share my passion for creating social justice. And just thank you for your interest and your support. And I'd love to stay in touch with all of you because together we can create a kinder world, and we need it now more than ever.
I put in a couple of things for those who might want to join us with a discussion on Wednesday with Frank Ferrara, the police officer who really is a testimony to giving back. So you have that information in the chat already, along with my email.
Okay. Yes, it is there. Great. Look at this. It is 29 minutes after the hour, and we are honoring your time. And thank you for staying and sharing some more. And we'll see you again on the 14th of October at 1 p.m. Eastern Time, and for another great discussion.
Great.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, Osnet. Thank you so much.
Thank you, everybody.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
Joyce.
Great seeing you
Bye-bye.
all.